I wasn't planning on going to the anniversary dinner. Not at first, anyway. I had every excuse lined up. Work deadlines, late meetings, jet lag. But when Mom called me the fourth time that week, her voice soft with hope and just the tiniest crack of guilt, I caved. "It's been 10 years, Logan," she said. "You know how much this means to us." She was right. 10 years. 10 years of my parents sticking together, building a life, raising a family. And even if I hadn't always felt like part of that family, I couldn't deny they tried. Especially her. So, I packed my bag, left the skyline of Seattle behind, and flew back home to Charlotte for one weekend, one dinner. I'm Logan, by the way, 31 years old, founder of a mid-sized software company, and according to most of my relatives, the family disappointment. I was the youngest of three. My older brother, Gavin, followed Dad's footsteps into law. My sister, Lily, the middle child, married her high school sweetheart at 20 and now runs a lifestyle blog that mostly consists of reposted Pinterest quotes and yoga poses on scenic cliffs. Me? I built my first app at 16, dropped out of college at 20, and spent the next decade grinding in silence until the grind finally paid off. But to my family, that success didn't count. Not the way Gavin's polished courtroom wins did, or Lily's picture-perfect kids in matching outfits on Facebook. I guess some achievements don't look good on the fridge. It wasn't always this tense. When I was younger, I actually looked up to Lily. She was witty, charming, the kind of person who always had the right thing to say at the right time. But as we grew older, the shine wore off. Somewhere between my third failed relationship and her third sponsored skincare campaign, she decided I needed help. Not the kind that comes from concern, either. The kind that's wrapped in condescension and tied with a passive-aggressive bow. And when I met Ray, my fiancé, things only got worse. Ray is everything Lily isn't. Quiet, thoughtful, deeply observant. She doesn't post about her feelings. She shows them in small, deliberate ways. And maybe that's what bothered Lily. She couldn't control Ray, couldn't read her, and it drove her nuts. By the time Ray and I pulled up to the banquet hall where the anniversary dinner was being held, I could already feel the tension buzzing like static in the air. The building was beautiful. Oak beams, floor-to-ceiling windows, chandeliers that cast soft light over ivory tablecloths, and fresh flower centerpieces. It was elegant, understated, and far beyond what I expected my parents to afford on a retired teacher's pension and a local lawyer's salary. But I said nothing, just adjusted my collar, opened Ray's door, and walked in with a tight smile. The moment we entered, I was reminded why I had almost said no. Gavin spotted us first. He raised his glass in mock salute and made a show of checking his watch. "Look who decided to grace us with his presence," he announced. The table, already half filled with aunts, uncles, cousins, and various family friends, laughed politely. I forced a smile, guided Ray to her seat, and nodded at Mom, who gave me a grateful glance that was gone too quickly. Lily arrived 10 minutes later, late as always, sweeping in like she owned the room. She wore a glittering gold dress that sparkled under the chandeliers and gave air kisses to everyone within range. Her husband, Connor, trailed behind her like a forgotten accessory, juggling their toddler and a diaper bag. Lily barely acknowledged Ray and me, just offered a thin smile and a Logan, like it left a bad taste in her mouth. She didn't say Ray's name, didn't even try. We were halfway through appetizers when the first jab came. I was telling Aunt Monica about a recent expansion my company was working on. Nothing too flashy, just conversational, when Lily cut in. "Oh, are you still doing that little app thing?" she asked, sipping her wine. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were sharp. I thought that was more of a phase. A few people chuckled, unsure of how to react. I glanced at Ray. She didn't say anything, just raised an eyebrow and folded her napkin a little too neatly. I smiled, shrugged, and said, "Still doing it. Somehow it pays the bills." That earned a few more laughs, this time genuine. Lily's smile tightened. Dinner moved on, but the tension didn't. Lily kept circling like a vulture, dropping comments so subtle they almost slid by unnoticed. "You know, Ray," she said at one point, "if you ever need advice on balancing a relationship with a creative type, I have tons of tips." Connor used to want to be a filmmaker before he realized stability is important too. I watched Ray process that, her fingers tapping lightly against her wine glass. "Thanks," she said calmly. "Logan's actually pretty stable. You should see his portfolio." The smile Lily gave in response was ice cold. Later, After dessert was served and people started mingling, I excused myself to the hallway to take a call. It was just an excuse. I needed a breather. As I leaned against the cool marble wall, letting my mind wander, I heard footsteps and laughter echoing down the corridor. It was Lily and Ray. They hadn't seen me, and I was just around the corner, hidden in the shadow of one of the tall indoor plants. I should have moved, should have cleared my throat, but something made me stop. Lily's voice was soft, conspiratorial. You know he doesn't actually have money, right? Logan just likes to pretend. That whole tech company thing. He's probably in debt. I mean, he dropped out of college. She giggled. I bet he asked our parents to pay for this dinner. Ray didn't answer right away. Her voice, when it came, was calm. Too calm. You think he's pretending? Oh, come on, Lily said. He's always been like this. Mr. Mysterious, too cool to be part of the family. He needs a little reality check. Honestly, I think someone needs to teach him a lesson. You could help with that, you know. Just nudge him. Get him to open up. Then maybe we find out what he's really hiding. There was a pause. My chest was tight. My breath caught. And then Ray spoke again. Maybe he's not hiding anything, she said simply. Maybe he's just done explaining himself to people who don't want to understand. That hit me harder than anything Lily could have said. But she wasn't done. Just think about it, Lily said. You're marrying into this family. You deserve to know what you're getting into. And then they were gone, their heels clicking down the hallway, their voices fading. I stood there for a long time. No anger, no panic, just this strange, cold clarity settling over me. I smiled, adjusted my watch, and walked back into the hall like nothing happened. The thing is, Lily was right about one thing. Someone was going to learn a lesson tonight. She just didn't realize it wasn't going to be me. And when they found out who really paid for the venue, when they realized who had bought the company running the event, well, I had a feeling dessert wouldn't be the sweetest part of the evening. But I still hadn't said a word. Not yet. I don't think I touched my dessert. It sat there on the pristine white plate, some kind of flourless chocolate tart with a raspberry glaze, untouched, slowly wilting under the soft glow of the chandeliers. The servers glided through the room with the kind of practiced grace you'd expect from high-end events, clearing plates, refilling wine, smiling politely. I watched them work. They were my employees now. They just didn't know it. Not yet. When I bought the event planning company 3 months ago, it wasn't for this moment. I'd never been one for petty revenge. At the time, it was a smart acquisition, clean books, consistent revenue, great client roster, and a few deals with regional hotels that offered vertical integration. I saw a win-win. The fact that my mother happened to book their services through some friend of a friend recommendation, that was pure coincidence. Or fate. Hard to say. But the second I saw the company name on the RSVP email, something clicked. And I decided not to tell anyone. Now, sitting at this long table flanked by relatives who still thought I was between jobs, I watched my sister work the room like she was running for office. Every smile was measured, every laugh just a bit too sharp, and every glance she threw in Ray's direction. It was like watching a cat circle a mouse it hadn't decided whether to play with or devour. It wasn't just condescension anymore. It was strategy. She was building something. Gavin was no better. He didn't have Lily's passive aggression. He preferred the frontal assault. Over the years, he'd mastered the art of backhanded praise. Man, you're lucky Ray's so smart, he said with a smirk, swirling the last sip of wine in his glass. She probably helps you file your taxes, huh? He laughed like he'd made a joke, but it landed with a dull thud. Ray gave him a long, patient look, one she usually reserved for tech support scammers. I actually do our taxes, she said. He runs 5 departments and consults for 3 firms. I just make the spreadsheets prettier. Gavin blinked, chuckled. Right, of course. Then under his breath, didn't know spreadsheets came in pretty. I was used to this. The subtle grind. It had become a family tradition, roast Logan at dinner. What I wasn't used to was how Ray was handling it. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't fighting. She was just absorbing, cataloging, watching. She was learning their rhythms. I could see it in the way she kept folding her napkin, and how she tracked Lily's movements, how her eyes flicked toward the head of the table where my parents sat. She was waiting, just like me. The real breaking point came after the toast. Dad stood, glass raised, and delivered the kind of speech you'd expect from a man who used to argue in courtrooms. It was polished, heartfelt, just the right amount of humor and sentiment. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about his love for Mom, A few people wiped tears. Then, like a conductor, he passed the baton to Lily. We thought it would be nice for Lily to say a few words too, he said proudly. She's always had the gift of eloquence. Lily stood with practiced elegance, holding a folded note card. She didn't need it. This was her stage. Thank you, Dad, she said, beaming. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a beautiful night, and we're celebrating two people who taught us what real love looks like. Her eyes went misty. Her voice dipped into that carefully calibrated tremble she used in her Instagram videos. I could almost see the likes rolling in. She went on, praising our parents, her husband, her kids. Then she veered left. And of course, I want to acknowledge my brothers, Gavin, who's built such an incredible career, and Logan. She looked at me, and for a second, I thought, just maybe, this time she'd show a sliver of kindness. Who's always followed his own path. A pause. That's something I've come to admire, honestly. I mean, not everyone can afford to chase passion projects without worrying about things like stability or, expectations. A soft ripple of laughter. I guess we need all kinds of people to make the world interesting. Another laugh. This time, even Dad smiled. I stared at my glass. Anyway, she said brightly, I know Ray has been such a positive influence. It's been really great watching you grow, Logan. Truly. And we're excited to see what comes next. I didn't look at Ray. I didn't have to. I could feel the heat radiating off her. Gavin clapped first. Then others joined in. Lily gave a modest smile, sat back down, and sipped her wine like she'd just delivered a TED Talk. My father leaned over and patted my shoulder. She's right, he said. You've really come into your own. Took you a while, but I think you're finally getting there. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood. Later, Ray and I stepped outside. The cool air hit like a bomb. The banquet hall glowed behind us, laughter and music spilling out into the night like a scene from a movie. I lit a cigarette, one of the few vices I hadn't kicked, and stared up at the sky. Ray stood beside me, arms folded, silent. She really said all that with a straight face, I muttered. She meant every word. I nodded. She thinks I'm playing pretend, that I'm still the same clueless kid who didn't know what a Roth IRA was. She doesn't want to believe you've changed, Ray said, because then she has to confront why she hasn't. That made me smile. You're good at this. I listen, clearly better than I do. She was quiet for a moment. Then, do you want me to say something? To her. I turned to her. No, not yet. Let them keep talking. Let them all keep assuming. Ray tilted her head. You sure? I nodded. I've already made the first move. They just don't know the game started. When we walked back in, the music had changed. Couples were dancing. My parents swayed slowly in the center of the floor, eyes locked in that old married people kind of love that you don't see much anymore. Part of me hated that this night was tainted. Another part knew it needed to be. We sat back down. Lily had taken Ray's absence as an invitation to cozy up to Connor's younger brother, an investment banker from Atlanta who thought he was the second coming of Elon Musk. They were laughing about something, but when Ray returned, Lily's smile faltered. For a brief moment, her mask slipped. She looked irritated. That's when I noticed it. A napkin, folded on Lily's plate. A scribble on the corner. I leaned slightly and caught a glimpse. It was Ray's name. Beside it, ask her about prenup. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just jabs anymore. Lily was digging, planting seeds, trying to fracture the one thing in my life that didn't need defending. I stood. I need a drink, I muttered. At the bar, I ordered something stronger than wine. The bartender, a guy named Marcus who I'd met once during acquisition talks, smiled. You okay? He asked. I gave him a long look. Tell me, I said, how's the team treating you since the ownership change? He grinned. Better than ever. New benefits, better scheduling, and the whole place runs smoother. Didn't expect it, honestly. I nodded. Glad to hear it. Then I turned, drink in hand, and watched my sister. And I realized something important. She wasn't trying to protect the family. She wasn't trying to help me. She was afraid. Afraid that I had passed her. That I had become something she couldn't explain away with sarcasm and false concern. That Ray, in all her quiet strength, made Lily's performative perfection feel hollow. This wasn't sibling rivalry anymore. It was war. And she had just fired the first real shot. I walked back to the table. Ray met my eyes. I gave her the slightest nod. She knew. It was almost time. But not yet. Because before I could pull the trigger, they needed to see it. All of it. I wish I could tell you the reveal happened that night. That jaws dropped, forks clattered, and Lily's expression crumpled like a wet napkin as the truth hit her like a freight train. But it didn't. Not yet. Because even though I'd bought the company, even though I was sitting at a table surrounded by servers I now technically employed, I hadn't pulled back the curtain. Not fully. Not publicly. I was still watching. Still waiting. Because something in my gut told me the damage wasn't finished. Not yet. The night wrapped with hugs, speeches, and one too many group photos. Lily made sure to position herself in the center of everyone. Gavin invited me to a poker night I knew I wouldn't attend. My father gave me one of those long, "I'm proud of you, even if I don't understand you" handshakes. And my mother, she just hugged me, tight, longer than usual. When she pulled away, her eyes were glossy, but she smiled like she meant it. Maybe she did. Back at the hotel, Ray was uncharacteristically quiet. She slid off her heels and curled into the armchair by the window, watching the lights blink across the skyline. I sat on the edge of the bed, undoing my tie. "She's going to try something," Ray said eventually, without looking at me. "She already did." "No," Ray said. "That was the prelude. She's testing the wires, waiting to see which ones spark." I ran a hand through my hair, exhaled. I saw the napkin. I figured. "Prenup?" Ray finally turned. Her eyes were sharp, but not angry. "She doesn't think you're enough." I nodded slowly. "And you?" She stared at me for a long beat. Then, "I think I've never met someone who hides their strength more deliberately than you do." That hit deeper than it should have. I didn't sleep much that night. And over the next few days, everything began to unravel. It started with a group chat. Lily created it, of course. Titled it Sibling Summit, as if we were launching a startup instead of tolerating each other. Gavin was in it. So was Connor, for some reason. Not Ray. Just blood. The first few messages were harmless. Photos from the dinner, links to Dad's speech, a video of Aunt Monica doing the cha-cha. Then came the pivot. "Lily, hey, serious question. Do you think Logan's actually serious about Ray? Like, long-term?" "Gavin, I mean, they've been together a while, right?" "Lily, yeah, but he's always had commitment issues. Remember Anna? And Joe? And that girl from Denver, what was her name?" "Gavin, Jess." "Lily, right? He's like a serial almost fiancé." "Me, I'm literally engaged." "Lily, just asking. Chill. We're your siblings. We get to question things." "Gavin, she seems nice though." "Lily, sure. But don't you think it's weird how she doesn't talk much? Like, what's her deal?" "Me, maybe she doesn't want to compete for air." "Gavin, oof. Okay. Lily, Logan, I'm just trying to make sure you don't get hurt. You rush into things, and I'm not convinced Ray isn't. I don't know. Using you." "Me? For what?" "Lily, you tell me. You've always been weird about money." I left the group chat. That same week, Ray got a DM from one of Lily's blogger friends. Someone who followed Ray's art account. "Hey," it read. "Just wanted to say I love your work, but FYI, someone's been saying you and Logan are on the rocks. Thought you should know." Ray showed it to me over coffee. I didn't say anything. She just kissed my forehead and said, "You'll know when it's time." But that time didn't come right away. Because first, everything had to break. A few days later, I got a call from Mom. Her voice was small, like she was trying to whisper and cry at the same time. "Sweetheart, did you really walk out of the family group chat?" "I didn't walk. I ran." She sighed. "Lily says you're being cruel. That you're cutting ties with the family. Gavin said you're acting like you're better than us." "And you?" "I don't know what to think." That stung more than I expected. "Mom," I said carefully, "if I told you that Lily's been spreading rumors about Ray, asking people about prenups, and actively trying to sabotage my engagement, what would you say?" Silence. Then, "She's just worried about you." Of course. I thanked her, told her I needed space, then hung up before my voice cracked. That was rock bottom. Because for all my planning, all my quiet confidence, some part of me still believed my family would come around. That if I just worked harder, succeeded more, proved myself again and again, they'd finally see me. Not as the weird kid who skipped college. Not as the black sheep. Just as Logan. Their brother. Their son. But they didn't want that. They wanted the version of me that made sense in their world. The version that lost. That needed help. That stayed in his lane. And I wasn't that person anymore. So, I stopped trying to be. That's when everything shifted. I went dark for a while. No family dinners. No check-ins. Gavin sent a few passive-aggressive texts. Lily tagged me in a couple of public posts. Hashtag sibling goals beneath a photo of her and Gavin clinking glasses, me noticeably absent. I ignored them. Ray and I went back to Seattle and got to work. She opened a gallery downtown, one she'd been dreaming about for years. I built the website, ran the back end, helped with the branding. It launched to a packed opening night, local press coverage, and even a feature in a regional magazine. She never bragged, just kept painting, kept creating. Meanwhile, I took my company into its next phase. I hired aggressively, diverse voices, smart people, unconventional thinkers. We tripled our dev team, expanded into AI integration. And yes, I bought 2 more companies. One of them, a boutique PR firm with strong digital distribution channels. I didn't buy it to spin stories. I bought it to write my own. People started noticing. Ray's gallery became a local cultural touchstone. My software got picked up by 2 major clients in the healthcare sector. I was invited to speak at a tech conference, my first keynote. And through it all, I kept quiet. No family posts. No victory laps. Just quiet progress. But the universe has a funny way of looping things back. 3 months after that disastrous anniversary dinner, I got a call from a familiar number. It was Marcus, the bartender from the venue, now the operations manager of the company I owned. Hey, he said, we just got a new booking. Large party. 50+ guests. Looks like a family reunion/baby shower. Name on the contract is Lily Cross. I blinked. My sister. Didn't want to assume. But yeah. He paused. You want us to block it? I stared out the window. The rain was hitting the glass in steady rhythm. No, I said. Let it through. You sure? Oh, I'm sure. I hung up and turned to Ray, who was reading on the couch. Want to go to a baby shower? She didn't even look up. Only if you're buying the drinks. I'll be honest, there was a part of me that wanted to burn the whole thing down. Not just the baby shower, but the whole illusion my family had built around themselves. The polite civility, the smug superiority, the belief that I would always be the one just slightly out of place, slightly behind, slightly not enough. I wanted to expose it all. But revenge, real revenge, the kind that doesn't just satisfy the moment, but leaves a lasting impact, requires restraint, precision, timing, and a little patience. So when Marcus called to confirm Lily's baby shower reservation, I didn't rush to respond. I waited. I wanted to see if Lily would reach out to me directly, maybe offer an olive branch, or even some shallow attempt at inclusion. But she didn't. No call. No text. No mention. As far as she was concerned, I didn't exist. Or I existed just enough to be excluded without consequence. That was her power move, silence. The unspoken message that I was irrelevant unless she needed something. Well, not for long. I started with the basics. Marcus sent me the full event file, guest list, catering choices, decorations, even a mock-up of the custom welcome banner she ordered. Celebrating Baby Cross in soft rose gold lettering, with floral garlands and pastel centerpieces. It was obnoxiously on-brand for Lily, curated perfection with zero authenticity. She'd even booked a violinist for the cocktail hour and requested a mood board-inspired grazing table, which was just a pretentious way of saying charcuterie. I studied every detail. Then I made my own calls. First, to Olivia, the head of the PR firm I'd recently acquired. Olivia was brilliant, ruthless, and had a personal grudge against Instagram influencers who weaponized wellness culture for clout. I didn't even need to sell her on the idea. She sounds like a clone of every brand deal parasite I've ever had to clean up after, she said, after I forwarded her a few clips from Lily's blog. She's worse, I said. She hides her claws behind yoga quotes. Perfect, Olivia replied. Let me dig. Next, I called Marcus again. I want you to run the event exactly as she planned, I said. But I want full control of the vendor confirmations. You want to tweak the details? He asked. No, I said. I want to own the details. Quietly. If she asks about anything, tell her it's standard operating procedure. New company protocols, whatever you need. He chuckled. You're playing the long game. I'm rewriting the rule book. I sent him a file with very minor adjustments to her original plan, so subtle no one would notice unless they were paying attention. The same decorations, but supplied by a vendor I owned. The same floral arrangements, but billed to my holding company. The same signature cocktails, but renamed on the menus with subtle digs embedded in each. The Golden Child, Silent Brother, and my personal favorite, the Black Sheep's Bourbon. Inside jokes no one would catch. Yet, as the date approached, I started preparing the stage. Ray was in on it now. At first, she hesitated. She didn't love the idea of petty revenge, especially with a baby involved. But when I explained it wasn't about punishing Lily for being pregnant, it was about finally confronting years of quiet cruelty, exclusion, and manipulation, she nodded. Then let's make it clean, she said. Surgical. You want them to feel it, not just see it. That's why I didn't stop with the event. I began to curate the reveal. It started with Ray's gallery. She invited a local arts and culture blogger to do a feature on her latest installation, a multimedia piece exploring themes of visibility, silence, and family dynamics. I didn't have to do anything to guide the conversation. The journalist, smart, curious, and a little nosy, asked Ray about her personal inspirations. And Ray, with quiet poise, mentioned how some families confuse love with control, and how success outside the box often makes people uncomfortable. The quote went viral in our circles. I made sure it found its way onto Lily's radar. Then came the podcast. A friend of mine, Jenna, ran a tech and entrepreneurship show. I'd turned down her interview requests for years, but this time, I agreed. We recorded an episode titled The Silent Builder, where I spoke, carefully, about growing up feeling overlooked, about working in the shadows, about building quietly while people doubted you. I used to think I had to prove myself, I said at one point. But now I realize you don't have to shout to win. You just have to outlast. The episode dropped 2 days before the baby shower. The timing wasn't an accident. Back on Lily's end, the guest list started to balloon. What was once a simple family gathering turned into a 70-person production. Local influencers, church friends, old classmates, even some of my extended cousins I hadn't seen in years. She wanted a spectacle. Proof that she was still the center of gravity in our family solar system. Good. Let her shine. Let her orbit. Because I had built the sun. A week before the event, Gavin texted me out of the blue. Hey, you coming to Lily's thing? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then replied, wasn't invited. 10 minutes later, he wrote back, you should come. I think she's just being dramatic. I didn't answer. Instead, I made one final call to the event photographer Lily had hired. I'd seen her work before. It was fine. Standard lifestyle shots, filtered edits, posed candidates. Nothing unique. So I offered her a contract. Quietly. Through one of my subsidiaries. Double her rate. Exclusive rights to all images taken at the event. She hesitated. I sent the paperwork. She signed. Now I owned every picture Lily hoped to post. I wasn't trying to ruin her. Just remind her. Remind them all. That I was no longer the one standing on the sidelines. I was behind the curtain, writing the script, and I wasn't alone anymore. Because the best part of rebuilding? You don't just find yourself. You find people who see you. Ray was with me every step. Olivia coordinated the press. Marcus handled logistics. Jenna kept the podcast trending. Even the photographer, now and on the plan, asked me, how much drama do you want in the candidates? Just enough? I told her. Got it. And finally, the night before the baby shower, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my mom. Hi, I said when she picked up. Logan, she breathed. I wasn't sure you'd. I just wanted to say, I'll be there tomorrow. A long pause. I didn't think you'd want to come. Didn't think I was wanted. She was quiet again. Then, you're always wanted. Not by everyone. No, she admitted. Not by everyone. We sat in the silence together. Then she said, I'd really like it if you came. I'm not coming for Lily. I know. I'm coming for me. Another pause. That's enough. I hung up. Looked at Ray. We're on. She smiled. What are you wearing? Confidence. She rolled her eyes. Okay, Mr. Dramatic. Go iron a shirt. And so I did. I laid it all out that night. Charcoal slacks, pressed white dress shirt, brown leather shoes. Nothing flashy. Just polished. Present. Intentional. I slept better than I had in weeks. Because tomorrow, everything would change. Not with yelling. Not with a fight. Just with a smile. And the truth. The morning of the baby shower felt like the calm before a storm I had handpicked the weather for. The sun was shining, not too hot, just warm enough to draw out every guest in their Sunday best. Ray and I arrived precisely 5 minutes late, Just long enough to avoid being the first through the door, but early enough that people would still notice when we walked in. We weren't trying to make an entrance. We were the entrance. The venue. Yes, my venue looked beautiful. Lily's vision had been executed flawlessly. The pastel palette, the delicate floral arches, the custom mocktail bar with blush pink signage reading, "Baby Cross coming soon." It all screamed curated perfection. Guests were milling about, sipping out of mason jars and taking selfies under the balloon arch. Everything was perfect. Exactly how I wanted it. Lily was in her element. She wore a flowy cream dress that practically screamed ethereal motherhood and had somehow convinced everyone to wear a color-coded palette to match the decorations. It was like stepping into one of her filtered Instagram posts. Connor buzzed around nervously, checking on the food table and getting ignored in real time. She didn't see us at first, but people did. Heads turned as Ray and I moved through the crowd, greeting some old faces, nodding politely at others. I could see the flicker of surprise in their eyes. The quick mental math. Wait, wasn't he not invited? Ray wore a soft green dress, effortlessly elegant, while I kept it simple. Clean lines, good posture, and the quiet confidence of a man who no longer needed permission to exist. Then Lily saw us, and the mask cracked. Just for a second. She was holding court near the dessert table, laughing with a small cluster of influencer moms who looked like they all used the same teeth whitener. Her smile faltered. Her eyes locked on me. A second too long. But she recovered. She always did. "Logan," she called out, her voice sticky sweet. "Oh my God, you came after all." I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. She air-kissed my cheek like we were close, then did the same to Ray, who returned it with a smile, so polite it practically had razor blades behind it. "We weren't sure if you got the invite," Lily said. "Things must have gotten lost in the group text." "Must have," I said flatly. "Well," she chirped, "I'm glad you're here. Just keep things chill, okay? No drama today. For the baby." I almost laughed. "No drama," I said, sipping from my glass. Of course. We let her believe she still had control. For one more hour. The first real shift happened during the toast. She gathered everyone around with a tinkling of her crystal glass, handpicked from a boutique store she'd tagged on Instagram, and stood on a little platform near the cake. She thanked everyone for coming. Thanked Connor. Thanked her amazing village of women who supported her journey. Then she looked at me. "And of course," she said with faux warmth, "we're especially touched that my brother Logan made time in his schedule to join us. You know, he's always been the mysterious one in the family, very private, very quiet. But we love him anyway." Polite laughter. I didn't flinch. She kept going. "In fact, it's funny. I didn't even know you were in town until someone mentioned your podcast episode. Very insightful." She smiled wider. Such an interesting take on family dynamics. That was her move. Her way of reminding everyone that she still had the mic. That she got the last word. Until the violinist began playing the wrong song. And the lighting changed. And the projector screen, previously rotating through baby photos of Lily and Connor, suddenly froze. Everyone looked up. And there it was. A still image, the Golden Child cocktail menu. The Silent Brother. The Black Sheep's bourbon. Someone snickered. Lily blinked. "What is this?" she whispered. Marcus stepped up to her side. "Miss Cross, the slideshow is being handled by the event owner's team. We've been instructed to transition to the second segment." "Segment? Yes," he said, then turned to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a surprise tribute arranged by today's host." And then he nodded at me. Every head turned. The room fell quiet. I stepped forward, slowly, the sound of my shoes echoing slightly on the polished floor. Ray stayed behind, calm and composed. "Hi," I said. "I'll keep this short. Some of you know me as Lily's brother. Some of you probably don't know me at all. That's okay. I've always been more behind the scenes." Nervous laughter. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for coming. And to thank Lily for reminding me that even when someone tries to write you out of the story, you can still buy the pen." Another pause. "I own this company now. The one that planned, catered, decorated, and hosted this event. Every flower, every chair, every plate, it's mine. Not in the metaphorical sense. In the legal one." A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. Lily's face went pale. She stepped forward, trying to smile. "Okay, Logan, that's funny, but..." "Not a joke," I said. "I acquired the parent company 3 months ago. I've been quiet about it. I didn't think I'd need to make a scene. But lately, someone has gone out of their way to treat me like a cautionary tale, question my relationship, undermine my partner, spread whispers behind my back. I looked at Lily. And the thing about whispers is, eventually, they get loud. Lily's mouth opened, then closed. Every vendor here, I continued, was redirected through my LLC. Every service rendered today has already been paid in full by me. So don't worry. You can all keep your mini quiches. Polite laughter again. Nervous, uncertain. But since I technically hosted this event, I get to decide who stays. Gasps. Lily's jaw dropped. You're not serious, she whispered. Dead serious. I'm pregnant, she hissed. I'm aware. This is my day. No, I said quietly. It was my day the second you made me the villain in your story. The second you told people Ray was using me. The second you tried to teach me a lesson. Her eyes widened. She knew I had heard. I never. You did, I said. And you know you did. So now, it's your turn to learn. Marcus stepped up. Miss Cross, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside for a moment. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Lily looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to come to her defense. But no one moved. Connor stayed still, holding a glass of punch, eyes darting between us. Even my mother looked unsure. Eventually, Lily turned to me. This is disgusting, she spat. No, I said softly. This is called boundaries. She stormed out, her face a cocktail of rage and humiliation. Connor followed after a moment, expression unreadable. I let them go. I turned back to the crowd. Anyway, I said, there's cake. Enjoy. Later, as things settled, people came up to me. A few offered awkward praise. A few apologized, though they didn't quite know what for. Gavin kept his distance. My mother sat with Ray and spoke softly for a long time. I didn't intrude. As we left, Marcus handed me a small envelope. What's this? I asked. Final invoice. 0 balance. Just symbolic. I smiled. Thanks. You really pulled it off, he said. I looked back at the venue. She pulled it off, I said, nodding toward Ray. He grinned. Power couple, huh? Something like that. Outside, Ray slid into the passenger seat and looked at me. How do you feel? I paused. Clean, I said. Like I finally set down something I've been carrying for way too long. She nodded. She's going to hate you for this. I know. And you're okay with that? I looked straight ahead, started the engine. I don't need her to like me anymore. I needed me to like me. As we pulled away, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows behind us. The guests were still inside, still eating, still laughing. Life moved on. But something had shifted. A line had been drawn. And this time, I wasn't standing behind it. I was standing on it. Smiling. Owning it. The final photo in the event gallery, posted 2 weeks later on the event planner's social media, featured Ray and me standing at the edge of the floral arch. No filter. Just light and clarity. The caption read, "The quiet ones always surprise you."